want to do in sport, especially if you want to like be the best that you can be, you have to make sacrifices. Like that's just kind of part of it. You know, you are the one that is different to everyone else. You're doing things that other people aren't doing. And it does take its toll on your social life, but all this effort, all this time, all this sacrifice, years and years of hard work, and then you get to a point and it's just not been good enough. There's only so much support external people could give. I think it's in my opinion anyway, it's a lot of it is on the child and on the person. There's gonna be times when it is really, really like hard. But that's the side that you don't see, because why would anyone want to talk about that?
So it's an absolute pleasure to have professional basketballer Danny Evans, who also represented Team GB at the Commonwealth Games, with us today on Elite Children, a Family Portrait. So Danny, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on today, because I know you're really busy with your training schedule with heading off to Germany in May. So thank you for finding the time to come and have a chat with us. Before we start, so the listeners can get to know you a little bit better, my children have come up with 10 quick fire would you rather questions. So we have Ava, our eldest daughter, with us today. Ava plays tennis, and one of her favourite players is Nick Kyrgios. So I'm sure you're aware he's a big fan of basketball, like yourself. Quite a lot of his kind of fitness drills are all kind of basketball related. Ava does a similar thing. She likes wearing all the basketball jerseys. When she's got like tournaments, she'll go in like kind of a Jordan. So she's a big lover of basketball. So we just thought it was quite fitting that Ava asked you the questions today. So I'll hand it over to Ava now.
So the first question is, would you rather read a book or play a game?
Ooh, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I'd have said play a game. But wait, do you mean a basketball game or just like a board game?
I'd say any, to be honest.
No, the last guests that we've had on, they've all mentioned about kind of computer games, so like kind of Xbox
computer
or
games.
kind of PlayStation.
Okay. I'd say a book then. I've never really been into computer games like that, to be honest. But the last kind of year and a half, I've been reading a lot. So yeah, I'd say read a book.
I'll take some notes. Would you rather win $1 million or earn $1 million?
Earn $1 million. Earn $1 million.
Yeah. Would you rather have a takeaway or eat out at a restaurant?
Eat out at a restaurant. Yeah.
Would you rather listen to Stormzy or Drake?
Drake.
Solid.
I hate to say it, Drake.
You know the past guests that we've had on, everyone has said Drake so far. We've not had any Stormzy. However, you do like a bit of Stormzy, don't you?
Yeah. Would you rather only wear Nike or Adidas?
Nike. I'd say Nike.
Correct.
Correct.
Would you rather own a Bugatti or a Lamborghini?
I'd say Lamborghini.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that would be the stock answer to this. Would you rather do cardio or lift weights?
Lift weights every day.
Funny.
Cardio. I try to mix my cardio into my on-court training, so it doesn't have to just feel like boring cardio, to be honest.
Yeah, cardio is boring. Would you rather play as Spider-Man or the Incredible Hulk in a Marvel film?
Spider-Man, flying between the buildings and stuff. Yeah, Spider-Man.
Yeah, definitely Spider-Man. Would you rather play Prime with Michael Jordan or Prime with LeBron James?
LeBron James.
Ooh.
I'd say LeBron. I'm a LeBron over Michael Jordan fan, to be honest. Controversial.
Would you rather wear Dunks or Jordan 1s?
Jordan ones.
I
Yeah.
would wear
Smashing. Thank you very much for that,
It's
Ava.
okay.
All right.
That's some
Thank you
good
very
questions
much.
there, Ava. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Right.
Goodbye.
Bye. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for that, Danny.
You're
Right,
welcome.
okie dokie. So as you know, the podcast is to shine a light on the secrets and sacrifices all families go through to allow their children to become elite level athletes, and something that's really close to our hearts with our 4 children currently on that journey. So my first question is, where did it all begin for Danny? Could you take me back to your childhood and your earliest memories of when you was living and growing up in Leeds? As I'm always curious to kind of hear whether these experiences shaped any of the athletes' journeys of where they are today. So, where did it all begin for Danny?
So for me, like you said, I was born and raised in Leeds.
Yeah.
My parents separated when I was really young, so when I was 3.
Right. Okay.
And so for the first from 3 to like 10, it was just
Yep.
me and my mum,
Right. Okay.
plus the support and help of like my grandparents on
Right.
both
Okay.
sides. But yeah, my mom, she just would always try and get me to go to different like clubs, like different
Right.
sessions,
Okay.
taster sessions, all different types of sports.
Yeah.
Because I was quite hyperactive as a kid. I was quite like disruptive in class, like not like naughty, but chatting all the time,
Yeah.
like getting sent out of class, this, that, and everything. So she would try to get me into sports to try and like
Okay.
curb that energy a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I tried athletics, I tried swimming, rugby, football, and then like stumbled across basketball and after
Okay.
school club when I
Yeah.
was 8,
Right.
when I was in year 4. And then from there it just kind of like I caught the bug for it, and then
Right.
that was
Okay.
it from there really.
Right. Okay. So that sounds similar to Ava's kind of journey. So as you know, like Ava plays tennis. However, when she was younger, she tried like a variety of different activities. She did like kind of a dance and a ballet and a gymnastics and a horse riding, and then she ended up going to tennis with one of her friends at school. And
Mhm.
that's when she kind of caught the bug. And again, at a similar kind of time to you, really.
Mhm.
So I think it is always nice when the children are growing up, and we've done this with all our children, that they can kind of access, different activities, and they can kind of make their own decisions then of
Mhm.
how and what they want to kind of get into as well. So that's
Yeah,
quite nice,
definitely.
that isn't it, really? Um,
Definitely.
so was this when you started? Because I think I read, and you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong. You started watching quite a lot of like YouTube videos on basketball then as well, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, I did. So I had a friend who um I always kind of forget this part of the story, but he had he joined our school, my class in like year 4,
Right.
and he
Okay.
was with us till like year 5, year 6. But he was from America and
Okay.
he played basketball a little bit.
Cool.
And so he was watching YouTube videos. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna watch YouTube videos. And that was just at the time when like YouTube was just starting up. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the videos were really grainy and
Yeah.
everything. But I was watching them a lot. And I was just kind of taking inspiration from everything, from YouTube, from what I saw. There wasn't much basketball on TV, but um, different sports. I remember at one point I wanted to be a sprinter for a while because
Right.
I think it was the 2008 Olympics, or maybe the 2004. It'll be the 2004 Olympics.
Okay.
And I was about what 7 then. Um, and yeah, I was just like obsessed with it like from
Yeah.
then. And so yeah, I guess my inspiration came from all different types of sources.
So then, and again, I'd kind of read that I think under 14s, you were selected for England, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think you kind of was quoted as saying this was like kind of your first wow moment with regards to almost almost kind of seeing that kind of celebrity or being like that kind of famous basketballer type of kind of industry? Because did you go to Turkey, was it? And you had like kind of
Yeah,
security there, and there were people asking for autographs, and it all
yeah.
sounds like kind of really kind of cool and stuff. And I think you'd mentioned that this was like kind of your first wow moment that, again, probably like motivated you and inspired you like even more then, didn't it? To kind of like have a
Exactly,
taste of
yeah.
that.
Yeah, 100%. That was like, I remember it because up to that point, I was the best on my club team here in Leeds, and
Right,
we were
okay.
competing like in national league, so against different teams across the country or
Yeah,
across the region even.
yeah.
And then I got selected for the Yorkshire team, and then we went to an interregional tournament where you
Okay.
play against the different counties, and
Yeah.
then there's England selectors there. And I got selected then for this team, and it was kind of like a one-off kind of competition. It was the start of like the 3-on-3. I don't know if you've heard of 3-on-3, like in the Commonwealth Games. That was what
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
competing in. It was the 3-on-3 kind of
Cool.
format. And so they were still kind of trialing it out at that point and wanted to trial it with international competition, but for juniors.
Yeah.
So yeah, got selected for that. There was 4 of us that got selected from in the country. We went with one coach to Turkey over the Easter holidays, and yeah, I think we were there for about 7 days, and it was just the most incredible like experience at that age because it just completely opened up my eyes that like, okay, you're playing against like people that are playing for their countries from
Yeah.
like we made it all the way to the final and played Romania in the final, and in the tournament it was like it wasn't just basketball tournament, it was like
Right.
almost like a mini Olympics. So it was all different types of sports. There was a big opening ceremony. The Turkish prime minister was there. Our president was there,
Wow.
opening it up. Like we had to. I carried the flag like to during the opening
It's
ceremony,
amazing.
and to and from the competition at the venue each day in the arena, we had like our own bus that would take us, our own like personal security, and stayed in this like 5-star hotel. And I just remember thinking like, wow, like this is like if this is what it's like, I want to do it again. I want to do
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
as much as possible.
Yeah.
And that kind of again kind of propelled my motivation, my like intrinsic motivation to want to
Yeah, yeah.
do this like full time eventually.
So that intrinsic motivation probably answers my kind of next question. I mean, from an early age, I know you was always kind of told by coaches that it's really, really kind of competitive to be like kind of a professional basketballer. You're not only competing from kind of children in the UK, but from around the world, and then there's only kind of limited kind of places available. So where do you kind of think that intrinsic kind of motivation kind of to succeed kind of came from? Do you think it came from like kind of your parents and like kind of your mum, or where do you think that kind of came from?
The intrinsic motivation, it's a funny one. To be honest, I don't think it came from my mom
Okay.
or my parents. I mean, they always wanted me to. My mom and my grandparents, they always wanted me to, just do as well as I could and
Yeah, yeah,
to try and as hard as I could
yeah,
and to like just kind of supported me with like that love and that care. And like after a bad game,
yeah,
my mom, she would just like say, "Oh, life goes on. Like you'll be
yeah.
all right," that kind of thing. And at the time, I remember thinking, "Oh, like mom, sure, like we just lost. Like I played terribly, or whatever the case might have
Yeah.
been." Um, I would never say that to her, but that's what I was thinking. And but there was always that love there. But in terms of the motivation, I think it came from all different kinds of sources, and still does today for me. Like
Okay.
um, you know, I remember I had coaches. I remember one like conversation distinctly that I had with a coach that was really instrumental for me, like at a very early age.
Okay.
Um, I remember he would drive. He was the assistant coach for one of the Yorkshire teams that I played on, and we were training for this tournament to try and be selected for England. And I think it was prior to that that under 14 that first time I played for England in
Okay.
Turkey. And one car ride back from the training, which I think was in Sheffield, it was just me and him in the car, and I'm what 13, 12, 13. I think he must have been like mid 20s, but he like said something that I remember at the time it was so like profound to me and like really made me think, and like it stuck with me obviously to this day. He was like, you know, you have the chance to be the first person like from this club, like from as in my club in Leeds, to play for England.
Okay.
Like you could be the first one to do that. And I was just like, wow, like yeah, I could, like that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so that little things like that, little comments that are made to me,
Yeah.
little like boosts of advice or things like that, those are what really drive me intrinsically to
Right.
want
Okay.
to get up early in the morning or to go that extra bit harder in training.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you kind of mentioned being like one of the first kind of professional basketballers from like kind of Leeds to kind of make it as a pro basketballer. So then does it, obviously it would help seeing like the stories like John Amici, who was from kind of Stockport, wasn't he? Who made it, and then Steve Bucknell, I think, who was one of the first British players to make like it into the NBA with like the
Yeah, he
Lakers.
was. Yep.
And then was it Luel Dang? I think
Luol
he
Deng, yeah.
was, yeah. So seeing the success stories like that, does that kind of help as well when you can kind of see other kind of boys, especially say John Amici from like kind of Stockport, which is not a million miles away from like kind of Leeds. It must kind of help seeing those success stories to kind of help drive you on to see almost that if they can do it, then I can as well. So
Yeah,
does that
100%.
always help as well? Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. It was like, to be honest, when I was younger, I remember thinking, because they were that little bit older, that they'd already
Yeah.
retired at that point. Luol
Yeah.
Deng was
Yeah.
still playing, but Steve Bucknell and John Amici had retired at that point.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I didn't look to them so much for inspiration. Luol Deng for sure, because at the time when I first started playing, like he was in his prime. He was, you know, an all-star in the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually went to his one of his camps in London, because he used
Wow.
to do, for I think it was for 4 years. He did a top 50 camp for the top 50 kind of prospects that were under
Cool.
19
Yeah.
in the country. He did that in London. So I was invited to that one year, which was really, really, really cool. I think I was 16 at the time or
Right.
17.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, things like that. Those are always sources of motivation when you can see someone that kind of looks like you or comes from a similar background to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
a similar geographical location, that has gone on to play professionally. And that's, to be honest, that's a big motivation for me now with the stuff that I do for for the younger generation now, because I
Yeah.
know that I had people that I looked up to, so I want to
Yeah.
kind of be
Yeah.
the same thing for them.
Okay. So again, I was when I was doing my reading, I read also as well around about the age of 12 when you was at school, you were setting your alarm for say like 6 o'clock in the morning, and you was going to the gym, you was doing like all your S&C stuff before kind of school, then you was going to like kind of school, and again that's something that our eldest Ava does a lot. So she'll go to tennis early on in the morning. However, because she's going to tennis early on in the morning, she's going to bed earlier than what say her
Mm.
friends would do. So would you almost kind of sacrifice seeing your friends later on at night at school because you knew you was getting up in the morning? Would you say there was kind of sacrifices that you kind of did because of that?
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. It was it all the way along. Like for anything you want to do in sport, especially if you want to like be the best that you can be,
Yeah,
you have to make sacrifices. Like
yeah,
that's just kind of part of it. And at that age, that is obviously the biggest sacrifice that you have to make, like
yeah,
in your
yeah,
life. Really, like it's not like you have to. We're not dealing with, big financial sacrifices or anything like that.
yeah,
It's as a kid, it's your social life.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so yeah, I remember, similar to Ava, like getting up early, kind of. I remember thinking, because I remember my friends kind of found out that I was getting up early, and they're like, "Why are you
yeah.
doing that? Like, it's so weird." Like, and I was in year 7 or year 8. But eventually, them same fast forward 4 years,
Yeah,
them same friends were like, "Wow, like that stuff you did back then, like really paid off."
yeah,
That's a good feeling.
yeah,
But at the time, it doesn't look like that. You
yeah,
are the
yeah,
one that is different to everyone else. You're
yeah,
doing
yeah,
things that other people aren't doing,
yeah,
and it does take its toll on your social life. But it is that the trade off is getting to the point where you want to get to and achieving the things you want to achieve in what you do. So them sacrifices, they have to be made. I remember when you get a little bit older, 15, 16, 17, when parties start to happen and your other friends are going out doing stuff, and I would be either not going or leaving early, or once you get a little bit older again, not drinking at all when I was going to them parties, and your friends are like looking at you funny, looking at you weird. But eventually, I found personally, you do it enough times, your friends kind of see like, oh yeah, he's an athlete, or he's doing this for there's a reason why he's not doing that, so they kind of leave you alone with it. But yeah.
So I think from speaking to the athletes that we've had on, so we've had a number of like professional athletes on now, and I think as parents who are kind of currently on that journey, it's always quite kind of nice and like kind of reassuring for us to kind of hear that. Because we've not been through that kind of process. We spoke to Reece Brown, who used to play for like United in England on a couple of shows ago, and he was saying similar to yourself, when he was getting to like say 15 and 16, all his friends were going out at say like the weekend, and he'd come home from training from United and he might have a couple of hours before he was going to bed, but he was saying that in those couple of hours he needed to like refuel for the morning for like kind of a game, or whether he had like kind of training, and then once he'd like kind of refueled, because he'd been training all day, he was tired and he'd want to like kind of go to bed. So he was almost saying that was kind of his sacrifice, i.e. spending time with his friends at the time. But then what would you say the biggest sacrifice is that you've kind of made to become a professional basketballer? There's lots of kind of little kind of sacrifices. Would you say there's like one kind of big kind of sacrifice, or are they all kind of little sacrifices, like not going out with friends, like getting up in the morning and doing all your S&C stuff, or is there one kind of big sacrifice you'd kind of pinpoint?
It's tough to say. Are you specifically talking about when I was younger, when I was kind of teenage years, or just in general?
So like kind of growing up as like kind of a teenager. It might be like, I mean, again now from obviously having 4 children, we try to like kind of limit the game time that they have. I mean, for all the really active, we've got Ava who plays tennis. We have 2 boys that are in a football academy, and we have our youngest. She's only 5. She does her horse riding. But for all the really active, if we let them, they still love to like kind of game. They love like kind of going on the switches or like kind of the Xboxes. So their sacrifice is not doing, too much kind of gaming. With Ava, it's not seeing her friends as much at the weekend because she's probably traveling around doing like kind of competitions. And once she's finished training, she's going to bed early. So she's not going around to see friends later on in the evening. So would you say there's lots of little kind of sacrifices along the way, or would you say you've had like one big sacrifice?
I would say I can't think of one huge sacrifice other than an overarching general one. It's just the concept of wanting to achieve something that so few amount of people actually achieve. And you don't have that safety. It's not certain at all. You could put all this effort, all this time, all this sacrifice, years and years of hard work, and then you get to a point and it's just not been good enough. And that's out of your control. Like you could have done everything you could have, and it wasn't, it wasn't good enough. And that's hard when you're a kid to kind of understand that. Because I've had friends that worked as hard as me, that would maybe not in Leeds, but across different countries or different parts of England, who worked just as hard as me, but they got to a certain point and their best just wasn't good enough. And that's the reality of sport. That's the reality of life. So I guess that's a big sacrifice, not having that safety net, whereas 95% or even a higher percentage of people that you go to school with that, I'm sure your children are around at school, have, that they're going to work hard in school. They're going to go aspire to go into university, maybe get a nice job, and then that's that. But if you're trying to be an elite athlete, that safety net's not there. Like you have to just kind of believe in it and believe in what you're doing, and then eventually it will believe that dream will come true. But alongside that, more specifically, is the little sacrifices all along the way.
Okay. So would you say, like, kind of your parents and your mum and your grandparents, did they support you on your kind of basketball career? Because I know, similar to like kind of football for my boys, there's a statistic that's, I think it's 1% of 9-year-olds in UK academies make it to become a professional footballer. And I was reading like the statistics for kind of basketball, and the statistics are very kind of similar. I think it was like 3% of high school basketballers make it to play kind of college basketball. But then only 1% of the college basketballers make it to be kind of a professional. So it's to get into the elite level sport, like you say, it's a really kind of tough, like kind of industry to kind of get into. So did your parents support you on that path because they probably knew how kind of tough it was? Did they kind of believe in you and want you to kind of follow your dream? Or
I mean this the support in many different ways. I think it's important to say that, like, there could be emotional support, there could be financial support, there could be just there's a tons of different supports. But for me, it was more, don't get me wrong, like my grandparents, they're from it's a different era, it's a different generation. They didn't so much see it as this could be your job, like this could be something realistic. It was just like, all right, he's playing basketball, cool. Like, and then for my mum, it was from my mum, it was more like, like, kind of, I believe in you, like, do what you love, and kind of guide me in the right direction. Like, if I ever stumbled down, like, I remember, across any setbacks throughout my younger years, like, I broke my ankle twice. I broke my ankle when I was 15. That left me out for like 6 months.
Right.
And then
Okay.
I broke the same one again, recovered, then broke the same one again.
Wow.
At an England training camp when I was 17. And I remember being in the car with my mum, and like leaving the hospital from having my X-ray the second time, and I was just crying, like floods of tears, like. And at the time, you're wondering, like, okay, am I ever going to get back to like being what I'm going to be? Is my dream gonna come true? And mum was just like, you'll be all right. Like, you gave me a hug. She was like, you've come back from it once, you'll come back from it again. And it's times like that when there's no one else but your parents, almost. Or it feels like, anyway, to fall back on. So that kind of support was huge. But to be honest, at the end of the day, there's only so much support external people can give. I think it's, in my opinion anyway, it's a lot of it is on the child and on the person, of how badly they want it. Because you can support till you're blue in the face as a parent, but if the kid themselves doesn't really want it as badly as they might say they do, or as badly as the parent, then there's gonna be a point. It might not be in the first year, it might not be in the first 5 years, but eventually, it won't work out. So
Well, I mentioned that because there was so we had one of our other guests on, Manny Onorise. So he's a professional footballer. He plays for Dagenham and Redbridge, and he told us a great story the other day. So when he was younger, his father, he wanted him to have like a professional career. He wanted him to get like a good education. He wanted him to get all good grades, and he thought that was the most kind of secure route for him and for kind of setting up his like kind of family. Whereas Manny, he was just obsessed by football. He wanted to be a professional footballer. So he was saying when he was at school, he was staying behind at school. He was going to like football practice, doing like kind of extra training. He was coming home late, and he was telling his dad that he was doing his studying and he was in the library and he was revising, and he was saying that his mum kind of backed him up with the story. So his mum kind of knew that he was wanting to be this professional footballer. So he was saying that his mum was kind of sticking up for him, whereas his dad thought he was like doing his education. And he was saying like his mum kind of sacrificed the kind of truth behind what he was doing for that. So like you said, these different ways of kind of like support and like kind of sacrifices that kind of go into like kind of your journey along the way.
And like little stories like that, every like athlete that you speak to will have little stories like that. Like I just thought
it was quite a nice little kind of story that he like kind of shared.
It is. That's funny.
So when you was at sixth form, was it true that I read that when you was in sixth form, you were sending like kind of highlights, kind of reels, like letters to kind of universities in America to try and get, say, a scholarship? And do you think that it was, again, from like kind of the stories that you've shared with us today, do you think it was that kind of resilience and kind of motivation and determination to kind of succeed that actually got you the scholarship? Because was it the first kind of letter that you'd kind of wrote, or the first tape that you sent, or was there a number of kind of tapes that you'd kind of sent?
Yeah, no, it was a journey for sure. It wasn't just like, okay, you send one and that's it. The first one comes back. It was, I was in sixth form. I was in year 12, I believe.
Right,
okay. First year of sixth form, and again, along this journey, there's been so much. As much as hard work there's been, in everyone's journey, there's like that little bit of luck. Like you might meet the right person at the right time, who might say the right thing to you or guide you in the right direction.
Okay.
And I had someone that so in Leeds, I was playing for the senior teams. I was like 15, 16, and I was bumped up to like practice and train with the senior team.
Okay.
Which was a really good team at that point. And on that team, there was a guy who kind of became like, put his arm around me, like kind of became like a big brother kind of figure. And he was dating a girl from the girls team who was from America.
Okay.
And she had been to college, obviously in America, and then come over to do a postgraduate time in Leeds. And she kind of knew that I wanted to play in America, and she said, you know, if you want to do that, then you should be sending out, you know, highlight tape, sending out a cover letter to find the emails of these people. Kind of sent me an address that a website that had like all the names of the different colleges, names of different high schools that I could maybe try to go to. So then it was on me to kind of do my work, and I literally would spend hours going through each individual site, like scouring the site, trying to find the coach's email, trying to find, if it wasn't the coach's email, it was like the video editor's email on the team, and I would just like, that would be the email that I'd send my stuff to.
Right.
And I'd just change, I'd send the same email, same cover letter, change the name, attach my highlight tape to it. I got references from my head teacher at school, from like one of my England coaches, from someone else, another coach that I'd been with for a while, and attached that with the little cover letter that I sent as well.
Okay.
And so I sent that off. I must have been to about 200 different prep schools and colleges.
Wow. Right. Okay.
And then from that, about maybe 20 came back. And then from that 20, maybe 10 of them said, "Oh, thanks for getting in touch, but we don't take international students." Okay, cool. Cross them off the list.
Yeah.
Out of the 10 remaining, maybe 5 didn't do scholarships, so that was crossed off the list because I wouldn't have been able to afford to go over there. So then there was that left about 5 or 4 remaining, and so was in touch with them. 3 of them said, "Yeah, apply to us." This is prep schools now, so this isn't colleges. They said, "Apply to us, and then once you go through that, we'll be able to see how much scholarship we can offer you, and we'll go from there." So I applied to 3 of them. And then in the way prep school kind of applications work, so at this point I wasn't trying to go straight to college. I was trying to go to a prep school before, which is a year before you go to university.
Okay.
And so out of those 3 that I applied to, you get the decision on like within days of each other. It's like in March. So it's around like similar time to now. And so I've been like correspondence with a couple of the coaches, but at that point it's not entirely up to the coaches, it's up to the school, the admissions and everything. And one of them I got rejected from because, and these are like prep schools that some of them have really high, they allow like 13% of applicants to go through because they're really high academically. So one of them I got rejected from, the other one I got waitlisted at, and then the third one, the coach called me and was like, "Hi Danny, like, yeah, like you got your scholarship, like we'll see you in the fall."
Wow.
And I just remember being like, "Oh my God," like that was like the sum of like all them years of just trying to get to America, trying to go over there. And yeah, that was the big moment. And so yeah, out of all them emails that I sent, there was one that like the Goldilocks one that kind of worked out, and it was a full scholarship, and it was great. So yeah.
So you kind of touched on it before. It's kind of a roller coaster of emotions that you kind of go through. Is there any times that you've kind of thought about like kind of giving up? I know when we was, again, most recently we had Manny on, who we've spoke about in the show, and there was times where he'd been like rejected and released from different professional clubs, and there was times where he felt like kind of giving up on, and he kind of touched on that he was kind of feeling quite kind of depressed and quite kind of low, because of like kind of the knockbacks that he was kind of facing. Was there any kind of times when you felt like you wanted to kind of give up, or was your kind of passion for your basketball kind of so strong that you was just kind of prepared to keep on going and going and going and going? Or did times get that hard where you do kind of like reflect and think it's not going to happen, I need to stop, or you do start feeling quite kind of low? And
I mean, for me personally, there's for sure times when you know you feel low. There's anyone you see that is a professional athlete or elite athlete in any sense of the word, like they have low times, like they're human. They have times where it's really hard to get up that day to go and train, to put one foot in front of the other and go do it. But for me, and it's funny that there was a quote, and a rapper, Nipsey Hussle, had it. He said, I just you see me here because I just didn't quit. Like I just didn't. Out of everyone, I was the one that just didn't quit. Like and it obviously it's very complicated, and the journey, if you looked at it, it would be like, you know how you see that graph and it's like what people think success is, and it's like a straight line. But really, it's like this,
definitely.
This, and then eventually, like it gets up to the top. But yeah, for me, I was one of them ones that just didn't quit. Like I had so many friends, so many people that I was with teams. Like for example, England under 18s. Like at the time, and I remember in the years leading up to that, I thought England under 18s. Wow, like if I could make that team, that would be really, really cool. And then I look back at pictures of like team pictures of that group now, and there's like 2 of us that are still playing basketball. I'm 26 now.
Right. Okay.
But at the time, you think, wow, like this is it. Like this is. But them, out of them 2 that are still playing basketball, I'd say probably 8 of the others that don't anymore. It got to a point where they just didn't want it, and that's not downplaying their inner, belief or inner determination. They just took different routes in life because they decided that this wasn't what they wanted to put their energy into, and that's completely fine. Like obviously anyone's entitled, we're humans. But to the ones that are still doing it are the ones that just didn't quit, no matter how good it got, no matter how bad it got. They just kept going and kept finding ways to adapt and to improve. And like for myself, like in terms of adversity or trials and tribulations, like in the last 2-3 years, like there's been a lot, like injuries. I myself have been released from clubs. Like it's that is the journey. Like
Yeah,
people
yeah,
think that,
yeah,
especially if you want to have a long career,
yeah,
there's gonna be times when it is really, really like hard.
yeah, yeah.
But that's the side that you don't see, because
And I,
why would anyone want to talk about that?
yeah, and I think that from what you've just said there, that kind of in a nutshell is like exactly why we wanted to do this podcast. Because it's something that, like you've just said, you never really kind of hear about that. And for kind of children, and for say like the parents, you always see like the nice kind of side of the game, whether it's kind of football or basketball or tennis. You kind of see them kind of competing. You see them in the media. Going to like the nice hotels or wearing the nice clothes and having like the nice cars and a nice kind of lifestyle. Um, and that's kind of what you've said is exactly why we wanted to do it. We wanted to kind of highlight that it's not the graph that you kind of showed. It's not just a straight line graph. You're going to start here. You're going to make it as a professional. There is going to be kind of ups and downs. And we wanted to really kind of highlight that it is a tough kind of journey. It won't come easy. However, if you have like kind of the right support network around you, like kind of family and friends, and you've got kind of the right mindset, that is a massive theme from all the athletes that we've kind of spoke about with regards to the kind of determination, the resilience, and the motivation, then anything's kind of possible kind of for you if
Hmm.
you believe in yourself so much. And again, I think you touched on it. It's got to come from within. It's not the kind of parents kind of pushing the children to want to kind of to be a professional basketballer. There may be kind of some element to it whereby there has to be like kind of motivation from the parents to kind of want the children to do this. But then at the end of the day, like you've mentioned, it comes down to the individual themselves. How much do they actually want it? And like you've said, it's those kind of like say 8 or 9 kind of boys who you was with that kind of drop out because they may not have wanted it as much as you.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's yeah,
Or another side of it is like, another reason why them people that drop out do drop out is because their natural talent
yep,
will only get you so far. Like, what do you do?
yeah,
What do you have to fall back on
yep,
when your natural talent isn't enough anymore?
yeah, yeah,
Like get it to the point of under 18s, maybe
yep,
under 20s. Like your natural talent has got you this far.
yep,
But when it does really get tough, or
yep,
like at my level now, like everyone's kind of the same
yep,
in terms of ability, but it's like, what is that 1% difference? Like,
yep.
what is that different part that you bring to it? Have you worked a slightly bit harder on, or paid more attention to a certain aspect of your game? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's so many different elements to it. But yeah,
Right.
what you said there encapsulates it pretty well.
Very good. So, unfortunately, it's come to the end of the show. I think it's been one of those shows where I think I could kind of talk to you a lot longer and keep kind of asking you questions. So, thank you for that. But at the end of every show, we do have a tradition. Um, I ask all our guests if they have any kind of famous quotes or philosophies that they stand by on a daily basis. So our last guest was Manny, who we've kind of spoke about in the show today. And I think you actually touched on it before, to be honest. And this was what he kind of uses on a daily basis. And he says you can't only work hard on the days you feel good. And that
Mm.
was one of his kind of things that he kind of stands by. So, do you have any kind of famous kind of quotes or philosophies that you kind of stand by on a daily basis that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I'm a big quote person, so I've got whenever I get asked this question or someone, I try to think of what is my favorite quote. There's a million that go through my head, but one that is kind of overarching, not specific to just to basketball or sport,
Yep.
is be where your feet are.
Okay.
And for me, that's like I remember the first time I heard it, it was just like, wow, like that just captures it really, really well, of like just being present. Like, don't let your mind be anywhere else. Like, what actually, the only thing that actually matters is where you are right now, like where your feet are.
Love that.
And if you continue to work really hard, or if you continue to focus on where you're at this current point in life, then and you do the best that you can in that small moment, eventually them small moments add up, and then over a long period of time you'll have achieved something really, really good. So
like that one. So Danny, thank you very, very much for being a guest on Elite Children, a Family Portrait. I'm sure the listeners and the viewers can definitely see and hear that they're not alone on raising their children to become elite level athletes. Good luck when you go to Germany in May.
Thank you.
And good luck with all your future ventures that you're engaged with. I know you're involved in a couple with like Find Yours project, and you've got your Danny Evans Academy. So do you just want to kind of explain a little bit about those for us, just so we can see what you're up to outside basketball as well?
Yeah, so I'm constantly trying to be involved in other things, but the Find Yours project is something that I set up with two of my best friends from home a few years ago now, back in 2019. And it's going into schools. The whole concept of it is basically to encourage children to find their passion and to find what it is that, like lights their fire, kind of thing. And then have them encourage them to learn the lessons from doing that and from pursuing that. Whether they'll become elite at it is irrelevant, really. It's kind of the things that you learn along the way from having that that desire to do something. And then so recently I've been hosting and running my own like skills camps, essentially, for young players. I'm planning right now my second one. It's going to be in the Easter holidays, and it's something I'm really excited about. It's kind of working with smaller groups of players, teaching them basketball skills, but also kind of life skills as well, and ways that the things you can learn from pursuing basketball in a strong way can transfer into other areas of your life. So
very good. So kind of thinking of the stories and what you've kind of shared with us today, I think words of kind of like dedication and motivation, definitely resilience and sacrifice all kind of spring to mind. So I'm sure with a mindset like that, any kind of future plans and the rest of your basketball career will be a huge success. So Danny Evans, thank you so much for being on Elite Children, a Family Portrait podcast. Thank you for your time, and it's been lovely to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. I appreciate it. All the best with the work you guys are doing going forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Danny.